Yeah, I love it.
Isn't
Good
that
to see you.
always the way, Plague?
Yeah,
Isn't that always the way? And
it
you're like,
really
what?
is.
I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
I had somebody that they asked the question of, how much time do you guys spend planning episode content?
You're like, oh, it's hours and hours of prep.
Days, really. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, soon as we finish recording the one, we're planning the next one.
yeah, basically.
Or conversely, we just show up and it's like, what do you guys want to talk about?
Well, it is interesting, right? Because it's sort of how a Whetstone relationship would go, right? It's like, right? You maybe are, and maybe I don't know. Maybe sometimes you're like keeping a list of, oh, I got to ask my stone about this or whatever. But I think most of the time, it's what's going on in life and how are we
Yeah.
processing that.
I think that's like anything else where your level of preparation, will oftentimes run on a similar, a corresponding course to how much you get out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you prepare nothing, you may not get anything out of it. You might get a very small amount, right?
But
if you really think about it,
to listen to a lot of different content, right? And I think so that's where I get a lot of my influence for my questions. And
sure,
it's interesting because I heard recently an episode of In Cadence, so our UK podcast, and I think that I heard a pretty good sock promo. So the F3 MudGear socks have even made it across the ocean.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously, we're not contractually obligated to mention socks on the In Cadence podcast. However, did you get some gifts in the mail?
They haven't arrived yet. But
they have not arrived. Okay, mine just got here like a day or two ago. Man, it has been. They're very good socks. We'll just say that. I received. I don't know if you're going to get the same exact ones or not. I received a pair of tall compression socks, which I'm not a typical, I don't typically wear compression socks, because I don't run far and that sort of a thing necessarily. But I'm excited to try them out. Got a pair of crew socks, which are my favorites now, I believe. And then a couple pair of ruck socks that I'm just excited to try because they're the new version of the ruck sock.
Right.
I have an old version of the ruck socks, but new version of the ruck socks. So I'm excited to try all these out. And
you could wear those compression socks on the plane when you're flying over to visit the guys in the UK. Help prevent some.
Look, I didn't get any endemic swelling. It's great.
Yeah. I had a portion of my career where I sold compression socks.
Did you?
Yeah, and it's fascinating how that technology was developed by having people walk into a pool, and sort of the deeper the water, the higher the compression, and then it reduced the swelling. And anyway.
I'm sure that Malco did all that research prior to figure out the exact right level of compression that a man would need to perform at his optimal level in an F3 workout and beyond. Yeah. I'm certain that that's what happened. You know why?
Why?
Because life is too short to wear crappy socks.
If you're going to be a winner, you're going to need a coach.
Sharpening doesn't happen by accident. A blade left untouched will rust, and a man left unchallenged will stagnate. Every man needs friction, resistance, and a whetstone to grind away weakness and reveal his true edge. Welcome to the Whetstone, where we reject comfort, disrupt the status quo, and forge men ready for impact. Hosted by Dread, Dark Helmet, and me, the Plague. This is where men step out of the drift and into acceleration, because iron sharpens iron, and no man sharpens alone.
And we're back. Yeah.
Hey, that was good. That was a good one.
It was good. We got one.
Well, here we are, right? I mean,
here we are.
December.
We thanked and we gave.
Yeah.
Right.
We locally, one of the guys here, his wife, every year we'll get a list of all these veterans that live in a veterans home and sort of a list of their gifts or wish list items. And it never fails, right? So we adopted a few veterans, and I'm reading the wish list to my kids, and I'm like, okay, this guy wants coffee, trash bags, and towels. And my kids are like, why would anybody ask for that stuff? And I'm like, oh, well,
Mm.
because they need it and they don't
Yeah.
have it, and so just was
And they
a
don't have
really
means to
great,
get it. Yeah.
yeah, it was a really great reminder, just on how, just the simple things, right? Like trash bags. Wow. Like
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
think a whole lot about having extra trash bags, but I've also been, I've been in a couple book studies, over this last year, and there's so many books, and more books on sort of what does it mean to be a biblical man, or sort of redefining masculinity. And there's all these other, I don't know if they're movements. They may be kind of movements, right? Like Mountain Tough is one that comes to mind. There's a Joby Martin is a pastor that has this book, Stand Firm and Act Like Men. But I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I couldn't help but think they were talking about having a knight's table or a king's table of men around you. And in my mind, I'm going, that sounds like a
You're like,
shield lock.
you mean a shield lock?
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
we've been doing for a decade now.
Yeah,
Okay.
like the third ring and the concentrica. Like, is that what you're? But I don't
You know what? You do it your way. It's fine.
Yeah, what are you seeing out there? Is I guess I don't know. Maybe the rest of the world is catching on to sort of the definition of masculinity that we've unfortunately created, and how to revert back to the true definition there, or what's?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because there are, in fact, there's a guy who F3 guys may be familiar with, maybe not, but he's a Northern California resident. Done pretty well for himself in the fitness and gym space. His name's Jason Kalipa. He's he's won the CrossFit games. He represented the American CrossFit team for several years. He was on that team, running around the world and destroying people. But super good dude. He had like a little bit of a viral video that kind of happened a few months ago of him talking about how he started a free workout for men only on a Saturday morning. And
Wow.
Right. And he was doing it once a week. I know. Right. And then he guys were like, dude, that sounds just like F3. And then guys were sending it to me. They're like, look, this guy, look, he like invented F3 over again, whatever. Right. So he and I connected, and he actually was here in Charlotte yesterday. And we worked out together and spent some time chatting and, trying to figure out like, how do we help him on his road, on his mission to invigorating men. And, he says he wants to raise men up. He believes that, anyway, there's a lot of guys that believe a lot of things about this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you sort of look at the way that the tide, I guess, has, maybe shifted a little bit, or the pendulum has swung, or whatever metaphor you want to use, there definitely seems to be a heightened awareness of the problem of male loneliness, of, we've kind of abandoned this idea of toxic masculinity, and we kind of know what that looks like, and people identified it, and, whatever. Obviously in F3, we don't believe in that. We don't think that's true. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. Masculinity is divine and holy and wonderful, and we define it in F3 as courageous love. It's that selfless, way that you hold the middle and act like a minivan centurion, right? Yeah. But the other people want to define things different ways, and I get it, and that's all fine. But we've sort of recognized like sort of this bro way of doing things is not necessarily the exact right way, or maybe it's not the most effective way or whatever. But you're right. It almost seems like there's a male revival going on in our country, right? In our world.
Which is really cool, right? I mean, it's probably a good thing. There may be some danger there. I think about, I don't know, false prophets maybe, or guys that would steer you back towards the bro culture. But
yeah, it's like there's a lot of Andrew Tateism, out there, and the hustle and the bro and the destroy everything and be inappropriate and whatever, right? And act like act like a jackass. Think you're the king of the world.
Yeah.
And even some of these guys, and I don't know anything about Joby, not Joby. I don't know anything about him. I assume that it's probably pretty good stuff. It's probably biblical. It's probably, because he's a pastor, right? So I would assume that it's probably great stuff.
He one of the things that I thought really resonated with me, and is F3, right, is, there's a verse in Corinthians. It's like First Corinthians 16, verse 13 and 14. But it's stand firm, be strong, act like men. And then the next verse is everything you do out of love, right? And so then he went into sort of like, well, what does love look like? And you kind of went through the typical marriage or wedding verse, right? Love is patient, love is kind, and sort of like, do we love that way as men, and so that to me was a really kind of convicting, right? I'm not always patient and kind and not keeping record of wrongs,
I refuse to believe that, but if you say so, I'll take your word for it.
I have some work to do.
Don't we all? Yeah, I think that and so it brings it up a lot too, because then guys send me stuff, right? And they're like, have you seen this? What about this guy? And there's a group of like guys who decided, and it's always funny to me, Plague, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, like there's always a group of guys who think we're too Jesus-y, and there's another group of guys who think we're not Jesus-y enough. Yeah. And that, like there's always these chatter at the, kind of the two ends, right? But there's a whole group of guys that were F3 guys and broke off because they were like, we don't think that that it's biblical enough. We don't think that it is Jesus-y enough. So we reject your idea of faith, F3. We think you're wrong. And so we're going to be a parachurch organization. We're going to launch basically F3, but it's only going to be connected to churches, and it's like, I want to say it's almost like you've heard the 30-30 concept, right? Where it's like you work out for 30 and then you talk. Like, I think they do a similar thing where it's like we work out for 30 and then we Bible study for 30. And they do campfires and they do things. And you see, and there's some guys out there, and I'm not going to mention because I don't want to disparage them in any way, and I don't remember the name of that group. But then there's other guys that are out there that, you can go and have basically a grow ruck, or GTE rather, and it'll cost you, about $10,000 for the weekend, or the week, to go and like do that. And it's essentially, that's what it is. Yeah. And so you spend some time, and then I see these ones where it's like, and there's guys rolling around in mud, and crying on each other. Dude, somebody sent me one. I saw it come through on my feed, and maybe it was you actually. Now I think about it. I've gotten it from 3 or 4 different guys. There's like a group and I want to say they're in Utah, but it's like these guys go and meet at Costco for hot dogs.
Okay.
And that's like their men's group. Like they go and they socialize, as men over Costco hot dogs.
Interesting.
Now look, the Costco hot dog is not a thing to be, besmirched in any way.
A good
but
hot dog, yeah.
and inflation proof. They continue to offer them at the same price, even though it's probably, at a retail loss, not at a loss for the hot dog, because it probably cost you 13 cents. But but their margins decrease. Yeah. But so it's like you can kind of smell the movements if you want to. So in a similar way, like, we talk about the church, right? And really that's sort of this global idea of anyone who is part of Christianity that is sort of rowing in roughly the same direction, right? And we refer to that as sort of as the global body of Christ, the church, right? So I would say there's sort of this, like, the movement, if you will, there's sort of this masculinity awareness or consciousness that has arisen, and and we're all sort of heading in this direction. And so, I think that is good. I think it's great, in many ways. Do I think that it's going to get saturated at some point? And, that's like it, because things are trendy, so will it sort of wash out? And like the Costco guys are not going to be in the news anymore, Yeah, probably. Right? Like, and the funny thing about it is, and again, it's not a criticism. I think you should do that. My only challenge, or maybe it is a criticism, because I don't think there's anything wrong with going to Costco with your buddies and getting a hot dog. I think that's wonderful. And if that's how you socialize, and that's how you guys kind of come together and share things, and that's your second F, dope. I love it. Yeah. The challenge that I have is that you've now blessed the lives of 15 men or 20 men. But what are you doing? Like, if you believe in this so strongly and you think it's good, why aren't you launching Costco hot dog groups around the world?
Right.
There's plenty of Costco's, plenty of dudes, plenty of hot dogs, right? Like they're, so build a model and go and bless the lives of other men, but, and it doesn't matter who it is. what I've noticed about, and this isn't, again, it's not, I'm not trying to be critical of others only insofar as to say, hey, maybe there's a different way to do this that might be even better. But what I find is that there's always there's either a desire for the guy who started it to lead it, right? So you kind of have a choke point. There's a desire to monetize it, which is always a choke point, right? Yeah. There's a desire, you know what I mean? So there's these certain things that make it selfish, not in the sense that you're like, I'm a jerk and whatever, but or self-focused maybe is a better way to say it. There seems like there's a lot of things that leave it as self-focused.
Yeah.
Like I'm the one in charge, I'm the captain, I'm the king, I started it, it's got to be my way. Or I'm the captain, I'm the king because I'm going to make money at it. Yeah. Or any number of things, right? It's difficult sometimes, even when the intentions are pure, like in the case of a pastor, in the case of something like that, where I think the intentions are good. If that's your job and that's your professional deal, it's tough because you have to do certain things. You have to compromise certain things in order to get that money.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and make sure you're making money.
Yeah. And I think if you were to just Google, how do I make money in the sort of content space, right? I think one of the steps on the road.
Well, you would never Google it, Plague. You would chat GPT it now,
use the AI.
I'm just kidding.
One of the ways, right? So it's produce content that people value, but then one of the steps on that roadmap is eventually create a way for people to subscribe, and then you create a community.
Absolutely.
And then you charge money to join the community, and there's some value that people get out of community, and that's where I think some of these end up, right? I mean, I look at it. There's a few of them out there that it's
most will end up. Yeah. Most will end up there.
Yeah. One of the things on the
we fight with that all the time, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always this weird balance of like, we gotta function.
Right.
But how do you do it with volunteers but you have to make a little money anyway. But go ahead, what were you gonna say?
We just, it's funny locally. We have one guy who's got a daughter, high school girl that had bone cancer, had a leg amputated, and had to go back up to Mayo Clinic to have surgery. And so we just put out hey, let's raise some money so they can have a Thanksgiving, right? I think I don't know, $6,000 or more we just raised via Venmo, right? And then we had another guy, the guy who fell and broke his leg or broke his ankle, right? We raised $1,500-$1,600 for him. I was joking with my man Speed Bump that he's probably eating a mahogany nice steak dinner via DoorDash every night because he I think this was more of just a way to kind of support him. But
you've over-raised and I appreciate it.
But we do.
I will have lobster again.
We do a lot of these third F things, and guys are willing to give money because of the relationships. And but where I was going to go on the faith piece, a question I would have for you, because I think like at least in my experience, there aren't a lot of guys coming to my church that don't believe in Jesus, right? So if I believe the sort of Great Commission, right, and I'm going to, try to get to know guys and influence or do anything in that space, I need to be plugged into a space where guys are wrestling with those questions. And I think F3 for a lot of guys is a really safe space where you've got all these other guys and you can sort of find out what they believe to help, and then what, I don't know. It seems like in your relationship with F3 guys, or specifically Dread, you've been able to stand more firm in what you believe because you're not just in a group of guys that all believe the same thing. But I don't know what you see there.
No, I wholly agree with you on that for sure. Right? It is funny because like the Oprah bombs of like diversity is our strength.
Yeah.
No, strength is strength. I don't have, there's no other way around that, but it is interesting that when you attract based on unchanging eternal type principles and you try and hold true to those, you'll get all the other stuff, you'll get the diversity and you'll get money and you'll get the trick is not for us to, because we're not a business.
Right.
We've said this so many times, and I'm never going to stop saying it. We are a movement. I was thinking about this. It's funny you mentioned it because I was thinking about this just yesterday. maybe it was this morning. No, it was yesterday. I was getting ready to go to bed, and like, you know, how you kind of replay your day, and you know, maybe you don't do that. You're like, I just watched Netflix and just fall asleep in the chair. No, I'm just kidding. You know,
Yeah.
no, you're just, but you know, you kind of replay your day and you're kind of thinking through and going, okay, how did I do today? Or, you know, and then just weird thoughts kind of, you know, pass through or whatever. But I really thought about this because I told the SLT, right, of F3 Nation, I said, fellas, we have worked really hard now all year long. Like, really got after it. And really the guys who were even kind of in the, you know, the year before, right, when I took over as Nantan, like, we have done an intense and incredible amount of work to try and, you know, change some of the things that were happening, you know, stop doing some things that we did, you know, whatever, all this kind of stuff, right? We've gone through a bunch of stuff, right? And we've just been having our foot kind of to the gas. And I said, you know, hey, why don't we take December of this year and like, let's just relax a minute. So right before Thanksgiving, I said, we usually have a weekly SLT meeting, right? Every single week, for a couple hours, we end up, you know, going through stuff and trying to figure out what's next, how we do this, and moving certain initiatives and things along, right? And we said, what if we just didn't? What if we just sort of paused for December? We'll have one SLT meeting, kind of regroup, because, by the way, here's the announcement. You know, State of the Nation is going to come up again probably on Jan 20. Put that on your calendar.
Nice.
So we're going to have State of the Nation. You know, we're trying to do it every 6 months. That was my idea and goal to do. We've done it. So we'll have one here in January. We'll kind of talk about recap of, you know, 25 and some things we're going to do in 26, and also just, you know, general, like, let's just talk about what we're really doing out here and what we see and so anyway, long story longer, we'll have one in December, but we're not gonna, you know, I said, let's just relax. So I'm thinking yesterday and I was like, what if we just didn't exist? Like, what if the SLT was just like, I think we're good now. You know, we did what we needed to do. Like, F3 is kind of running on its own. We don't really need to do a whole lot anymore. There are certain things that have to get done. Scratch can take care of most of that, you know, as the employee. Like, he can figure it out. He'll figure it out.
Employee of the
like,
month.
but we don't need an SLT. Yeah, what if we didn't have an Antan? You know, do we need one? Do I need to be here?
Who would we ask questions about?
Yeah, like what time, or I mean, what, you know, when our kids should come to workouts? I don't know who would answer those questions, right? But like, I really started thinking about it, and then I thought a little further, and I said, no, there must be, because what will happen if there isn't is this: some guy, maybe well-intentioned, maybe not, but certainly we'll assume well-intentioned, will go, you know, what we could do is, right? And then he'll make it about himself. He'll start monetizing. He'll start, you know, all these things that I'm telling you. And I don't mean this, again, I don't mean it negatively toward anybody else. I'm not trying to pick a fight. Every other movement will fail. They will all cease to be at some point. I believe that in my heart. I will do my best, like with my buddy Jason. Like, I think we're really going to try and build this thing the right way. And I'm going to try my best to help him as best I can. And I know this might hurt somebody's feelings, and they're going to be like, F you, you're a jerk. I understand. I've done worse in the past for you to all hate me. That's okay. I'm okay. Like, we'll be all right. Like, there's going to be guys that get upset about it. But the guys that aren't going to get upset about it, listen close, because this is the truth.
Right.
Everything will fail. We will not fail, because we will always have a shared leadership team. Our model is different. Every masculinity movement in the world, every business that comes along, every whoever, they're all good. I love them. I hope that they are wildly successful. I hope that they come in contact with F3, and I hope that they steal the things that are good from us to go make their thing as good as it can possibly be. I very, very totally sincerely say that. 100%. And we will always be the framework. We will always be the thing that will make your thing better, and your thing will go away. And it's not because we're inevitable, you know, or anything like that, but I'm just telling you, the model that has been created, that was initially set up by Dredd, right? And that we have now evolved, you know, through Slaughter and to me and so on, like the way that this has evolved, the the reverse flow incubator, the decentralization, these are the things that will keep us strong.
Yeah.
These are the things that will keep us from falling into that trap of making it about us, making it about money, making it about anything that has to do with this world. You mentioned, it was funny because you mentioned right before we got on, you're like, anything from the book that you want to say. And I was like, the book. You're like, the book. And I was like, the Bible? Like, what book? Like a Q source? What are you talking? I don't know what you mean. He's like, no, idiot, the book you're writing. Oh,
Yeah.
that book. But you know, the kind of the theme of this book, or the idea around, well, there's a couple of books in here, but we are anti-organized. We will never do it the way that the world does it. We will always seek to find the thing that will cause us to swim upstream.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the way we will survive. Doing the things the way that this world wants you to will always cause failure.
Yeah.
100%.
It's so interesting because we've talked a little bit too about like the Tower of Babel kind of idea or mindset, right? And sort of like when you get a bunch of people together following the ways of the world, that it's like, let's build a tower all the way up to heaven, you know?
And it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. And I don't know if, you know, the other thing you mentioned that maybe from the book, I don't know if you could share, but it kind of has me thinking like, does some of this relate to this worldly spirit of accumulation, right? Because we just can't help but think, how do we monetize? How do I add more to the, you know, I need another storage unit, right? Kind of mentality.
Gosh.
I don't know.
Dude, if I had the land, I mean, I've heard like it's the old stack 'em deep, some like, you know, like don't just build a storage place, build one that goes up.
Right.
Then you don't have to have as much real estate, but you will fill it.
Yeah.
We love to accumulate. It is awesome.
Yeah.
The more crap we have, the better we feel about, I don't know what, but something, right?
Right.
And
is that related somehow, you think, or?
That's a good question. I would say that it's all kind of part of the same crappy soup. You know, like it'd be tough to say like, oh, are these poop carrots, or, you know, right, you know what, right, you know, or is this, you know, right? It's just like it'd be tough to kind of mire through and figure out exactly where it fits. But I would say definitely that sort of thing is a symptom, right? The accumulation myth, you know, this idea that, you know, he who dies with the most toys wins, or, you know, the more storage spaces you have, or the, you know, whatever it is, because we live in a world that I believe, this is my, you know, personal belief, right? That is a fallen world, meaning not that it's irredeemable. It's going to be like, guess what? Done, paid for, right? It'll all be redeemed. But, you know, where that men don't have, we are not naturally inclined toward goodness, right? We are naturally inclined toward selfishness, toward accumulation, toward all these things, right? And so in order to overcome that natural man, who in my belief is an enemy to God, right? We have to be diligent. And I've noticed for myself, we talked about this thing I went to in Phoenix, right? We've talked about that in here, right?
I think
kind
briefly,
of this
right?
man camp, like I kind of mentioned it, like it's a, you know, little retreat. Oh wait, no, sorry, we don't call them retreats, we call them refits, right? Dred didn't like it when I called it a retreat. He was like, retreat? We don't retreat. You know, you take them off the front line, you refit, and then you go back to the fight.
Refit.
Got it. So I went to this refit.
Was this the one where they had animals and you slaughtered a sheep, or this was a different one?
No, different. I forgot about that one. No, this was a thing I went to out in Phoenix. And it's kind of based on Eldridge's Wild at Heart.
Oh yeah.
If you're familiar with that.
We're reading
anyway, came back from that, right? And you start realizing, like, you know, we really do have it. We really do have it backwards in the world. And the things that we do, you start realizing the only way through this deal is love. And it's not like, it's a different kind of a thing than what we even will admit in COTs. Right. You know, like, hey man, I love you. Like, I know you do, and I believe you, right? But it's different. There's a different quality to some of these things that I don't feel like we totally have quite grasped yet. So in lieu of giving you a full recap of this 3 days when I was out there, but I'll tell you, one of the things that we talked about was kind of this poser syndrome. like this desire to seem like you are something different than what you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's a natural man kind of a tendency, desire, right? I want to seem like I am all put together. Or maybe you tell, whatever the story is that you tell yourself that isn't the truth.
Sad clown syndrome, kind of?
So I think it's different than sad clown syndrome,
Okay.
right? Sad clown syndrome is a guy who's like, he's got this quiet desperation in his heart, and he's putting on a good front. You know what? It's related. Sure. It's a different kind, I would say, or I would say sad clown syndrome is somewhere on the spectrum of poserism, or as we might refer to it in F3, mascotry, where you look like a guy with the, and everybody's happy, but inside you're, whatever. Right.
Yep.
So I'd say they're all kind of, flavors of a similar thing. Right. But this idea that, but that's why I feel like a lot of times we're still, even in COTs, right, where these guys that get up on stage and preach this stuff about rise up and be a man, all this kind of stuff. I think that they believe it, but sometimes I worry that it's like, it's still this like, well, let me show you that I'm brilliant, or let me show you that I'm okay, or let me, or whatever. But I'll tell you, and now I know we're kind of getting off on a weird, tangent maybe,
good.
but when we start thinking about what is the problem that we're trying to solve? We see all these masculine groups, like you mentioned, right? All these things are popping up. I think people are getting better at identifying the problem. Like they can smell the symptoms now, but I feel like there's very little offered in the way of, okay, but what do we do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Now the $15,000 boot camp deal that you can go to for, a few days or whatever. That's great. Even this thing that I went to in Phoenix, which was, by the way, significantly less than that. We didn't pay no $10,000 to go. I'll tell you that. Right? When in 1,000. Like that's great, but then what?
Yeah.
It's like any other thing where it's like, yeah, we rah, and then we got 2 weeks of good behavior or feeling okay, and then you're right back in the crap.
Well, and I think the question I always hear after those is how do we maintain that high? But to me, the better question is, how do we help you deal with the lows, right? I saw this really cool analogy, right, of like a heart EKG, right? So flatline means you're dead, right? So if you had all highs,
we don't want dead. Yeah.
Yeah. If you had all highs, you would be flatlined, right? If you had all lows, you'd be flatlined. And so really the sort of the symbol of life is the ups and downs, is what we would call maybe the flux.
Sure.
And so it's, how do we teach guys that? But curious, what do you think what are some of the solutions that we've found over the years? Because man, F3's been around now for almost 15 years.
Bro, 15 years in a couple of weeks. Right? Here's a fun idea. Post. Right? That's number one, right? Get yourself a shield lock, right? Have a Whetstone.
Wait, let me write these down. Are these in
yeah, good. Yeah, we should publish this. It'd be brilliant. Right. But, in fact, I'll tell you this, I really feel like we're all over the place. So I apologize. Maybe it's just the ADD today or what, I don't know. But I decided that I have earned the right as Nantan, right?
Yeah.
It's so stupid to say. But I'm calling a local convergence. I'm going to invite some neighboring regions and stuff from around as well, and try and get this together. But like, I'm calling a local convergence here in our area on Christmas Eve, because I have decided that I have not been loud enough about what we're really here doing. And with all of the things that are happening in the world, with all the content you can consume, with all the people, I mean, we were saying right before we got on, like, if the New York Times notices that there's a problem with masculinity or loneliness or men or whatever, right, then it's bad.
It's real. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, they're not exactly breaking any news on, something like that, right? But if they're willing to admit,
scene,
yeah, right, exactly. This just in, like men are unhappy. Oh, it's weird. Sad clowns exist. Oh, that's very good. In other news, sky is blue. Right. So if they're saying it, if a lot of these things that you would consider that have for many, many years, maybe decades, have characterized us as the problem, and told us how crappy we are and how, we're causing all these problems in the world, blah, 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 on and on and on, right?
Yep.
If they're the ones now turning around and going like, why are all these guys mad? You're like, why are guys sad? I don't understand.
Yeah.
You go, well, maybe it's because you told them they were pieces of crap for 20 years. Like, I don't, maybe,
Right.
just going on a limb. But I've decided that, like I've been a little too apologetic, I guess, in a way, or unwilling maybe to really claim. Now I'm kind of brainstorming here, like a kind of processing out loud, but I'll say this, we talk about this poserism, right? I realized that one of the things that I have done in my life to be a poser, because I think we all have it at different times and in different degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was younger, it was a lot more bravado and, kind of false, courage or, whatever, and showing off, and that kind of a thing. Like, I think it manifested that when I was like, high school, maybe even early college or something like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of get over that and you kind of move on. And I still had, moments where where I'm loud and obnoxious and whatever. And some of that's kind of a front that you put on, but what I realized more than that is, the lies that I told myself where I was posing most was that I'm a piece of crap.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Was that I'm a terrible person, that I'm not capable, that I'm not okay, that and whatever. And I think that we've looked past sometimes that's a very real problem.
Yep.
Whatever the lie is, it's funny because we sit here on this podcast and I'm like, my job is to help men overcome self-limiting beliefs. I mean, I'll go ahead and hold on to all mine, but
not
right?
helping myself, just want to help somebody else. Yeah.
But I realized, I feel like I'd overcome so many,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so far down this road. And then every time you turn around, you're like, it turns out the rabbit hole gets deeper.
Yep.
Right. But I just feel like I've not been vocal enough. And I've been a little too standoffish and apologetic and maybe just unwilling because I don't want to make anybody feel sad. I don't want to hurt the feelings of the guy who's, who's doing it for money. Hey, I'm not here to make you mad, but I have to stop diminishing the truth of the matter, which is, we have a problem.
Yep.
Sadly, whether a man likes it or whether he doesn't like it, the solution to that problem, plug in whatever word for it, on the F3 side, we kind of leave it, a little more open, right? But I think we would agree you must believe in something bigger than yourself. That's kind of our definition. For me, that's God, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no solution to any of these problems ever without God.
Yeah.
There is no other solution.
Yep.
And so, friends, again, apologize in advance, turn off your podcast now, right? If that hurt your feelings, totally understand. Pretend I didn't say it if that helps you. But that's the facts.
Yeah.
And therefore, you become fit as a man, physically, mentally, and emotionally. You have men around you to guard against and make sure that you don't fall off this wagon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you can then go and serve that thing that you believe in that is bigger than you.
Yep. Yeah.
That is the progression. It is the only way any of this ever works. Anytime you vary from that, your movement, your organization, your whatever is destined to fail.
Yeah.
That is what will happen.
Yeah, I love it. I do think, think about our last episode, focused on like self-limiting beliefs, and ultimately my journey and where F3 has really come in, right, is, unfortunately, and maybe this is just me, but self-limiting beliefs, like you said, right, you get rid of one and then another season or another thing happens in life and then comes another one.
What? Yeah.
And I think some, a lot of guys, right, depending on, how long we've held on to these beliefs, we sort of make them into our identity. And so then I think where I was at when I came into F3 was like, wait a minute, I don't think I know who I am, and so then if you're going to figure out, if you're going to stop the self-limiting beliefs or the lies, then you have to figure out what is the truth, which then requires you to,
what's the belief that isn't limiting that you have to put in its place?
yeah, it's sort of like, what do I actually believe in? We've talked about that too, and I think we call it the what. It's interesting because we were in a Q source discussion the other day about prayer or study, one of the third F things in the first quadrant, and the what was in there. And I had asked one of the guys next to me, like, what's the what do you believe that to be? And it was sort of like, I don't know that we should talk about that. And I'm like, well, why not? It's like
what else are we doing here, bro?
Right. Yeah, I think really helping guys unpack, because the what, the what to me is like this foundational question that you just keep unraveling, like, well, what do I really believe? Because to me, if I don't know who created me and what I was created for, then it's easier to believe the lies, right? It's easier to believe, like, well, maybe I'm here to just make money. I don't know, and
something will fill in the gaps. That's why I love that, when Dredd refers to all this kind of worldly wisdom and philosophy as goo, because it will, if you leave the crack, it will find its way in. It will seep down in there. Yeah. And man, it's tough to clean out. Yeah. If you've ever had that problem, like, like something got down. In fact, my wife, here, quick story, right? Our kitchen table, we bought this kitchen table. We should have been suspicious about the fact that it was so inexpensive. Right? We bought this kitchen table off of somebody on Facebook Marketplace, which is like my wife's second home. She loves it. Like everything in our house, like, some people would be like, look at how much money we make and how expensive. And my wife is like, I bought this for 13 cents. We have a whole new couch, and you're like, whatever. Right. So she kind of lives this other way. But we bought this table a few years ago, and it matched the decor that my wife wanted at the time. P.S. we replaced it recently. But,
at the time.
Because she was like, I'm sick of this.
At the time, yeah.
At the time, yes. And I love that she consults me. I think it's very sweet. Because we've had the conversation, hey, both of us live here, so we don't do stuff like that without at least consulting the other. Now, you can look at me and say, yeah, I don't care, do whatever you want, that's fine. But the consultative part of it is important to us, right? That's something that has helped our marriage and the communication and helped us practice to communicate on stuff that doesn't really matter. Right. So it's a safer place to have kind of, tough-ish conversations like, honey, I'm not sure how I feel about these drapes, like, whatever, I don't care, She's like, what do you think of the silver blue versus the blue silver? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm really leaning silver blue. I can't tell. I don't care. Whatever. Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what I think at the end of the day, because I'll be like, silver blue is definitely the way to go. And she's like, I don't know. I'm feeling blue silver. And I'll be like, honey, you're going to have to make that decision. I don't know what
you
whatever.
Decide. Yeah.
Yeah. But so we bought this, we talk about goo and getting down in the cracks. So we bought this table. It's kind of a farmhouse style. It was all black. And because that would, again, match the decor at the time. And then we repainted and we're like, it's very dark in that corner. Cool. I'm here to eat. I don't really care. Like the color of the tail is kind of irrelevant to me, but it had this, the way that it was built, it's kind of this craftsman style table, and it had these, it's boards, right? And so the cracks in the boards are there. Bro, let me tell you something. You think you're not a filthy pig, like until you cannot clean these little cracks out. And we vacuum it and we're scrubbing. We're always in there with like little sharp instruments and stuff, trying to get all the crap, out of these little cracks. And man, if you leave a hole open for goo to seep their crap in, it's like that table, man. It is impossible. Like we would get it clean, and then, one meal later, we're like, did we clean this? Like, what is happening? By the way, the last time we cleaned it, she was like, nobody eats here. We're getting rid of this table. The last time she cleaned it, we never ate it again, but, cause then we sold it, but that's the idea, right? Is it, if you leave these vulnerabilities, so leave these cracks open, then that's where you're going to end up. Yep. That's where you're going to end up.
Yep. And we talked about that too, right? You have those things open and then you drift and drift and drift. And then you're sort of like, what do I actually believe? Right. Cause the world, there's enough content and people and things out there, right, that will just fill in the gaps. Yeah. But I don't know if, as you're thinking about this time of year, and obviously there's a few weeks till the end of the year, but I love what you're doing with the SLT, right? Just taking some time, right? Sort of slow down a little bit. I think that's countercultural, right? I think
By the way, has anybody, has F3 stopped working yet? Like, has it come to a screeching halt in Omaha?
I'm hearing some rumblings. I think aluminum packs is self-voted.
That's right. He's out in force now. I haven't seen him in a while.
Aluminum packs is making us do all-time competitive workouts. But
yes, he's like, now is my time to shine. Yeah.
Any insight for guys, maybe in their individual or personal lives this time of year, as you're thinking about how we might do the same thing or similar thing?
Yeah, I think my answer on that is similar to what I talked about in our last episode. My very comprehensive plan that I've laid out in great detail of just stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it. I'll tell you, turning 50 didn't do it. Maybe, although, I came back from this retreat, I had some real breakthroughs, some real insights that kind of came out of it. And then I go, man, why am I 50 and just figuring some things out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I'm always reminded there was a guy leader of our church, he's 98 years old. He's he's a world-renowned heart surgeon, leader at our church, all this kind of stuff. And he read the scriptures in a different way. And he's like, I'm a different man.
Yeah.
I'm like, how can you be a different man?
Yeah.
Like, aren't you baked at 98 years old, like with all these amazing accomplishments of the world behind you? But, he never looked at it as I've arrived, So I think that the thing that I would tell a guy that I feel like I have learned more clearly over the last couple of years, and even pointed out to me in greater detail, even just in the last couple of months, right, is all the stuff that we have decided, just like we've been talking about on the podcast for the last few episodes, right? All the stuff that we have decided we believe may or may not matter, like you've got to get down to essentials. And you've got to just recognize that most, if not all, of the things that you are really, really, really worried about right now will not be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they're not nearly as big a deal as you want them to be. And so, therefore, what does that mean, right? It means I need to scale back my worry about those things. And I need to really focus on the things that matter. Okay, well, now we have to define what matters, right? So you have to kind of go through this, these ideas in this process. But man, I'm telling my wife this too, like if I could say anything to every man in the whole world, it'd be relax. Relax.
Yeah. And I love it. Some of what we talked about too, is like, forget the lust of the rich man's gold, right? All you need is in your soul. And really all I want for you is to be satisfied and be a simple kind of man.
Not good, Ely. It's Skinner.
Skinner. Yeah. I appreciate it, man. I do think, it's interesting too, right? Because like other organizations, if you don't come out for a while, or if you don't show up, right, then you can't come back, right? Or you haven't paid the fee. And so then there are some barriers to re-entry. And, I think what I've been hearing a lot of guys just, kind of reminders in our announcements locally that there's a guy that you used to see out here all the time and we haven't seen in a while. Send him a text, just,
Yeah. Who says that?
Yeah.
Who says that? Well, they don't pay their dues anymore.
Right.
Clearly they don't want to affiliate and we don't have anything to do with them.
Right. Yeah.
You'll never find that. Right. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. This is, and I'm going to stop apologizing for it. I'm going to stop saying it quietly. This is the greatest brotherhood known to man on the earth today.
Yep.
Anyone who says otherwise is selling you something else. I make just the same amount of money, whether you're here or whether you're not. So the fact that I fight for you to be here, the fact that I desperately work day in and day out to try and figure out, how do we make this more accessible? How do we stay more on mission? How do we reach more men? How do we unlock men out here? Like we talk about, hey, give a little money. Yeah, give a little money. You know why? So that I have a boat payment? No, friend.
Right.
No. So that we can run more Facebook ads, because we've had 40,000 men click, right? 5,000 men fill out a form and get invited personally to their first F3 workout. And now we're hearing the reports after doing this for a couple months of dozens upon dozens of men who are saying, I never knew. I never knew.
Yeah, it was right
and
here.
I feel like I'm coming home. Boys, stop apologizing for it. Relax. I promise you, whatever it is that you believe in that's bigger than you, for me, again, and I'm going to stop saying that too. Guess what? If you don't know it by now that that's what we believe in F3, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what to tell you. Get over yourself. But I'm telling you right now, God has it in his hand, baby. And he is directing us home. And I promise you this, not because this organization's so great, not because Dred's some kind of brilliant prophet. He might say, no, I'm just kidding, but because he taught us how. He taught a few men who taught a few men who taught a few men how to love each other right.
Yeah.
How to love each other right. That's what we're doing.
I love it. I appreciate you, brother. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah. Every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaping the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide.